Picture yourself opening up the refrigerator one day and finding absolutely nothing inside. Not because you forgot to pick up groceries, but because the supermarket is shut down, the food is gone, the water has been cut off, and you can't step outside at that moment. Money isn't going to buy you any more food. The only thing keeping you calm is what you thought to prepare ahead of time. The mistake most people end up making is stockpiling food only to throw it away with their own hands a few years later because it went bad. But there are foods that, if stored properly, never actually spoil. Not for just 1 or 2 years, but long enough to feed an entire family through any kind of crisis. Today, we're getting into 12 foods that never expire, what makes them immortal, and how to store them so they actually come through for you when it counts. They're not just food for emergencies, they are survival, they are time, they are nutritional insurance for your family. So, are you ready to discover foods that outlast the very people who eat them? 1. Bottled, purified water. Out of all the emergency foods out there, water has always held the #1 spot. You can survive without food for weeks, but without water for just 3 days, your body is going to shut down and every other food source becomes completely meaningless. That's why everyone from the military and rescue agencies to regular families preparing for the unknown treats water as the very first priority. From a chemical standpoint, water does not spoil over time. It has no sugar, no protein, and no environment for bacteria to grow in. That's exactly why the FDA does not even require bottled water companies to print expiration dates on their labels. Water does not degrade on its own, but the container holding it absolutely can. The most common mistake is storing water in hotspots like garages, car trunks, patios, or sheds with direct sunlight hitting them. When plastic bottles are exposed to high temperatures, especially anything above 30 degrees, the plastic starts to break down and release microplastics, BPA and other toxic chemicals directly into the water. The water will still look perfectly clear, won't have any smell, and won't taste any different. But it has already been contaminated with substances you simply can't detect with the naked eye. A study from NCBI shows that after just a few weeks sitting in a hot environment, the amount of microplastics in water increases many times over compared to bottles that were stored in cool places, so the water doesn't actually spoil, but it can absolutely become toxic if stored incorrectly. To make your water supply truly limitless, keep it in a cool place below 25 degrees, avoid heat and direct sunlight, and don't store it anywhere near gasoline or strong-smelling chemicals. For long-term storage, glass bottles or steel containers are the better choices. If any bottles are swollen, leaking, smell like plastic, or taste off in any way, toss them out. Stockpiling water is not an act of fear. It is calm, level-headed preparation for situations that can realistically happen at any time. So, where are you actually storing your water right now? Inside a cool house or out in a hot garage? 2. Pure salt, non-iodized. In the world of long-term food storage, salt is a silent gatekeeper. It doesn't just make food taste good, it actively protects entire food reserves by inhibiting the growth of bacteria. Long before refrigerators ever existed, people relied on salt to preserve meat, fish, and vegetables. And to this day, that role has not changed one bit. Salt is so durable that it is nearly immortal because it is a mineral, sodium chloride, with no protein, no fat, no sugar, and no moisture, no nutrients, no environment for bacteria to exist in. Its very nature of not being able to sustain anything is exactly what makes salt unable to spoil, mold, or rot over time. It needs no refrigeration, no vacuum sealing. You can basically just leave it alone. However, this is only true when you store pure salt without iodine and without any additives. Salt that has iodine or anti-caking agents added is still perfectly edible. But it can change color, absorb odors, or develop strange flavors over time because those added ingredients are a lot more likely to break down. Pure salt, such as sea salt, kosher salt, or pink rock salt, is the right choice for long-term storage. A lot of people make the mistake of using oxygen absorbers or vacuum sealing for salt. Not only is that completely useless, but it can actually end up trapping moisture, causing the salt to harden into solid clumps. It's not dangerous, but it causes unnecessary inconvenience and lowers the purity. Salt really only needs to be stored in a dry place, sealed up tightly, and kept away from direct sunlight. And when you actually need it, it does so much more than just season food. It preserves food, helps with disinfecting wounds, works great for making pickles, and creates electrolyte solutions when you combine it with sugar. So how is your salt being stored right now? In a sealed jar? A regular bag? Or is it still just mixed in with all the other spice packets sitting on your kitchen shelf? 3. White sugar. If salt works by pulling water out to kill off bacteria, then white sugar does the complete opposite. It traps water tightly within its own structure, preventing microorganisms from accessing it, from multiplying, and eventually they just starve to death. It sounds a little strange, but this mechanism is exactly why white sugar becomes one of the longest-lasting foods in any kind of storage pantry. The nature of sugar is pure sucrose with no protein, no fat, and no free water. Bacteria simply can't eat it, mold can't grow on it, and oxygen has almost no effect whatsoever on sugar's structure. That means sugar doesn't need refrigeration, doesn't need vacuum sealing, and it certainly doesn't need any preservatives. The only thing that's going to make sugar difficult to use is moisture. When it absorbs moisture, it clumps up into hard blocks, but it hasn't actually spoiled. It has only changed shape. Drying it out or gently heating it up to remove the moisture will bring it right back to normal. A lot of people accidentally make sugar age faster by storing it with oxygen absorbers. Sugar doesn't actually need protection from oxygen at all. It's the oxygen absorber itself that ends up trapping moisture and making the sugar harden more quickly. On top of that, storing sugar near strong-smelling spices like curry, pepper, or garlic is also a very common mistake because sugar absorbs odors incredibly easily and it will throw off the quality in cooking. Sugar really only needs one thing to last indefinitely, and that's dryness. When it stays dry, sugar is not just a sweetener. It can also help disinfect wounds when mixed with salt, put together oral rehydration solutions, preserve fruits into jam or syrup, and give someone who is completely exhausted a quick burst of energy. A properly stored bag of sugar is not only useful for cooking, but for actually protecting health during times when it feels like there's nothing left to rely on. So, are you storing your sugar in a dry sealed place, or are you still keeping it right next to all those strongly scented spices? 4. Pure honey. If sugar is a long-lasting energy source, then honey is basically the upgraded version. It nourishes the body, it functions as a preservative, and it can even serve as a form of medicine in times of scarcity. Honey has been found in Egyptian tombs that are more than 3,000 years old, and it was still perfectly usable. This is not some kind of myth, it's actual science. Honey doesn't spoil because it contains almost no free water at all. The water that is in honey gets locked up by the sugar, which prevents bacteria from using it to survive. Its naturally low pH and acidity further creates an environment that is simply unsuitable for molds and microorganisms. In other words, the structure of honey doesn't allow any kind of life to exist inside it. But this is only true if it is pure honey. Honey that has been diluted with syrup or water can end up fermenting, changing smell, or forming bubbles over time. Another very common mistake is assuming that crystallized honey has gone bad. On the contrary, Crystallization is actually a completely natural behavior of sugar. Just warm it up gently and it will go right back to liquid form. Honey doesn't need refrigeration or vacuum sealing. The one thing that can truly ruin honey is water getting inside the jar. Even just a few drops are enough to activate the natural enzymes inside and cause fermentation to start. So all it really needs is a cool place, a lid that seals tight, and absolutely no water contact. In times of scarcity, honey is not just a sweet treat to enjoy. It can disinfect minor wounds, help preserve fruits, provide a quick energy boost for someone who is exhausted. Whether that's someone elderly or a child who hasn't had a meal yet, storing honey is not about having something that tastes good. It's about having a food that is going to last longer than your refrigerator. Something reliable when every convenience you're used to suddenly becomes a luxury. Do you actually know how to tell real honey apart from honey that has been diluted? What kinds of tricks do people usually use to figure that out? 5. White vinegar, distilled. If honey is something that can be eaten and that helps with healing, then white vinegar is a food that is built for preserving and sanitizing. A lot of people only think of vinegar as just another kitchen seasoning, but when it comes to long-term storage, white vinegar actually plays the role of a genuine survival tool. It protects food, it protects the living environment, and it indirectly protects your health. White vinegar lasts for a very long time because it has strong acidity, and its low pH prevents bacteria from developing anywhere in its solution. The acetic acid in vinegar not only creates that sour taste, but also breaks down the cellular structure of microorganisms, preventing them from existing at all. Because of all that, vinegar does not rot or develop strange odors over time the way regular food does, and it does not need refrigeration or vacuum sealing, but for vinegar to truly never expire. The important thing is making sure you pick the right type. A lot of people confuse pure white vinegar with vinegar that has been mixed with sugar, fermented vinegar that has fruit flavorings in it, or ones with artificial coloring added. These blended vinegars can actually spoil over time because sugar and organic compounds give microorganisms something to feed on. Distilled white vinegar is really the only type that is built to last because it carries a strong enough acid concentration, it is free of impurities, and it does not feed any bacteria whatsoever. Vinegar does not require any complicated storage setup. It just needs to be kept somewhere cool, away from direct sunlight, and sealed tightly enough to prevent evaporation. The only thing that can really reduce the value of vinegar over time is leaving the lid off for too long, which causes the acid to slowly evaporate and the vinegar to get weaker. It does not actually spoil, but it does lose its ability to preserve and disinfect effectively. In times of scarcity, vinegar goes way beyond just cooking. It can disinfect surfaces, wash down fruits and vegetables, work as a basic cleanser when no detergents are available, support food preservation through pickling, and even help neutralize odors and cut down on bacteria in your living space. A single bottle of white vinegar can replace a huge number of other products without any worry about it expiring. Storing vinegar is not really about cooking better meals. It is about having something in your corner that protects both your food and your living environment during difficult times when conveniences suddenly become luxuries. So, are you actually using pure white vinegar or the mixed stuff? And how many bottles of the real thing do you have sitting in your kitchen right now? 6. Baking soda, sodium bicarbonate. If white vinegar is your go-to sanitizer, then baking soda is like a multitasking technician, always quietly working behind the scenes to handle small problems you would normally just ignore. On a regular day, it just sits in a corner of the kitchen waiting to be used in a recipe. But the second an emergency shows up, it can step in for antacids, for cleaning products, for a produce wash, and even for the deodorizer you use every single day. The strength of baking soda comes from its chemical makeup. Sodium bicarbonate is an inorganic compound that contains no water, does not feed bacteria, does not mold, and does not decompose the way food does. It only reacts when it is exposed to acid or heat, and when it stays dry, it is essentially motionless over time. That is exactly why, if stored properly, baking soda does not age, does not weaken, and does not deteriorate. It just sits there, always ready whenever you actually need it. But its incredibly strong ability to absorb odors is exactly what causes a lot of people to unintentionally destroy its usefulness. Storing baking soda near onions, garlic, laundry detergent, soap, or dishwashing liquid for even just a few weeks will leave you with a box of baking soda that can no longer be used for anything food-related. It has not actually spoiled, but it has become so saturated with odors that anything related to cooking can no longer use it. That is why baking soda is only truly everlasting when it is kept sealed, dry, and separated, one portion for culinary use and one for cleaning. In a life that lacks the usual conveniences, a little bit of baking soda can replace an entire cabinet full of chemicals. It can reduce stomach acid when no medicine is available. It can clean fruits when the water is no longer safe to drink. It can deodorize refrigerators, shoes, and trash cans, or you can combine it with vinegar to create a cleaning solution strong enough to handle most surfaces without any toxic concerns. It is no longer just an ingredient for baking. It is a whole set of life skills compressed into white powder, completely harmless, never expiring, just waiting for you to figure out how to use it correctly. So, is your baking soda being kept in a sealed jar somewhere, or do you still just leave it open by the sink because you figure it is only there for baking? 7. White rice in the world of long-term food storage. If you could only pick one staple that is going to keep people fed for years on end, not just days, white rice is always going to be the answer. It is inexpensive, it does not require any complicated preparation, and in times when fresh food becomes hard to come by, just one bag of white rice can genuinely keep an entire family going. What makes white rice hold up for so long is not because it is packed with nutrients, but because it is missing the very thing that makes most foods spoil so easily, and that is oil. Brown rice has a bran layer on it that is full of fat, and fat always oxidizes over time, quickly creating a rancid, sharp smell that degrades the rice in a relatively short period. White rice, once it has been thoroughly milled, has almost no natural oils left in it at all. No oils means there is no environment for bacteria and mold to take hold and start growing. So, white rice can stay good for decades without any freezing or preservatives needed. The mistake most people actually make is not in buying the rice, but in how they end up storing it. Rice absorbs odors incredibly easily. So, if you are storing it alongside onions, garlic, pepper, curry, or in anything damp, it will not actually spoil. But the smell will completely ruin the value of your entire reserve. White rice just needs to be kept dry, clean, sealed up, and away from anything with a strong scent, and that alone is enough to extend its lifespan significantly. In times of scarcity, white rice can be turned into porridge when water is limited, cooked up as regular rice when you need energy, or combined with beans to put together a meal that is nutritionally solid, even without any meat or fish. It is not just food, it is the feeling of being able to sit down and eat something normal on days that are anything but. A properly stored bag of rice can genuinely last longer than the person who is keeping it. So, are you storing your rice in the bag? It came in some kind of wooden container, or have you already moved it into something airtight that is actually built for true long-term storage? 8. Canned meat when the refrigerator loses power, when grocery stores are shut down, or when fresh meat turns into something only a few people can actually get their hands on. Canned meat is the rare protein source that is still going to be there, still nourishing the body as if nothing had gone wrong. In the world of long-term storage, there is really no other food that manages to be simultaneously energy-dense, safe, and long-lasting the way canned meat is. What allows canned meat to hold up for so many years is not the meat itself, but rather the way it gets processed. The meat is cooked at extremely high temperatures and then sealed inside a completely airtight environment with no oxygen. Bacteria cannot survive after that kind of heat treatment. And without oxygen present, mold and other microorganisms simply cannot grow. Because all of the conditions needed for biological decomposition have been removed. The meat inside the can is essentially placed into a state where almost nothing is happening to it. The quality may decline a little bit over time, but it remains safe to eat. However, a lot of people misunderstand what the expiration dates actually mean. The date printed on the label only tells you when the meat is at its absolute best quality, not when it becomes unsafe to eat. Canned meat can actually remain safe for years beyond that date, as long as the can itself is still intact, not swollen, not rusted over, and not deeply dented. The problem is not in the food itself, but in the packaging. When a can gets damaged, air and bacteria can get in, and that is when the food actually becomes dangerous. In times of scarcity, canned meat does so much more than just provide protein, fat, and energy. It keeps people from panicking with just a can opener, and without any complicated cooking involved, you already have a meal that is strong enough to keep you going. Canned meat is not a snack you buy and then forget about. It is a genuine reserve of strength that anyone who prepares properly should absolutely have on hand. So, how many cans do you actually have in your home right now that are still in good shape, not dented, not rusted? Are you storing enough to cover everyone in your household? 9. Dry pasta. If white rice is the basics of survival, then dry pasta is the food that keeps morale up during the difficult stretches. It is easy to cook, easy to eat, works for all ages, and it is incredibly versatile. From spaghetti and fusilli to penne, the different shapes alone can make meals feel varied even when your ingredient options are really running thin. Dry pasta holds up for a long time, not because of any preservatives, but because the key factor that makes food spoil the fastest, moisture, has been removed from the equation. Once pasta is dried down to a very low moisture level, bacteria and mold simply cannot survive in it. No water means no habitat, no decomposition. If stored properly, pasta is practically immortal, only changing slightly in quality over time, rather than becoming dangerous the way fresh food does. Yet a lot of people end up storing pasta in ways that quietly ruin it, keeping it in paper packaging for too long, leaving it somewhere humid, or putting it near strong-smelling spices that it ends up absorbing. The pasta will not actually go bad, but it will lose its natural flavor and start to become brittle. To truly store pasta for the long term, all it needs is to stay dry, avoid humidity, and be kept in airtight containers or sturdy storage bags. In times of scarcity, dry pasta can adapt to whatever ingredients you have left. With just a little salt, some oil, or a can of vegetables, you are still going to end up with a satisfying meal. Add in some beans, some canned meat, or even a bit of hard cheese, and the nutritional value goes up significantly without needing any advanced cooking skills. Pasta is not just quick and easy food. It is a food that preserves a sense of normalcy during abnormal times, keeping meals from becoming repetitive and exhausting. Are you still storing your pasta in the supermarket packaging, or have you already moved it into airtight containers for proper long-term storage? 10. Dry beans. If canned meat is the open and eat protein option, then dry beans are the long-lasting nutrition supply, one of the very few foods out there that can genuinely replace meat as a protein source while holding up for decades without refrigeration or any preservatives. Throughout some of the most difficult periods in history, beans were the staple that helped people get through famine, war, and drought. Dry beans are so durable because of their extremely low moisture content, combined with the fact that they do not contain natural oils the way many other seeds do. No moisture and no fat means bacteria, mold, and insects have no environment to grow in. Beans do not rot, do not go rancid, and they barely decompose at all over time. The only real change you will notice is hardness. Older beans take a bit longer to soften up when cooked, but they still hold on to the exact same nutritional value. However, beans are only going to last indefinitely when stored correctly. The most common mistake is keeping them in paper bags near anything humid or setting them directly on a cool, damp floor. Once moisture starts seeping in, beans can sprout or develop mold, and even a small patch of mold is enough to ruin the entire supply. Dry beans need a sealed, dry environment, away from direct light, and kept separate from foods that have strong odors. During hard times, a pot of beans cooked with just water and salt provides genuinely complete nutrition, including protein, fiber, and minerals. Combined with rice, pasta, or some canned vegetables, beans become the cheapest, cleanest, and most durable protein source that any well-prepared household should have. So, are you keeping your dry beans in regular bags, in airtight containers, or in something specifically designed for long-term storage? 11. Rolled oats. If rice and beans form the nutritional foundation of any stockpile, then rolled oats are the breakfast that keeps everything stable and steady. They do not require a lot of water to cook. They do not take much energy to prepare. They are packed with fiber and vitamins, and they are filling even during times when food is running low. A container of oats can become porridge, bread, energy bars, or it can even replace a full meal entirely when fresh food stops being available. What makes rolled oats hold up for so long comes down to how they are processed. Oats get steamed, then pressed flat and dried out to the point where bacteria, mold, or insects simply cannot develop. As long as they are stored properly, they also do not contain nearly as much natural oil as other whole grains, so they do not turn rancid over time. No moisture, low fat, incredibly stable. That is why oats do not need any preservatives added and can still hold up for decades. However, this seemingly simple food can be taken out by one small factor, and that is moisture. Even just a few flakes that have gotten slightly damp can cause mold to spread through the entire container, and mold in grains is a serious problem because the fungal toxins it produces cannot be removed by cooking. No matter what you do, rolled oats are only truly going to last indefinitely when kept sealed, dry, away from light, and not stored alongside anything with a strong smell. When your options are limited, oats cooked with just water and a little bit of sugar or powdered milk are still going to provide enough energy and nutrition to start an abnormal day in the most normal way possible. So, are you still keeping your oats in the original bag, or have you moved them into an airtight container for proper long-term storage? 12. Powdered milk. When fresh food starts becoming scarce, when meat, milk, and vegetables start feeling like luxuries, powdered milk steps in as a compressed reserve of nutrition. It can stand in for fresh milk and provide protein, calcium, fat, vitamins, and minerals, the nutrients the body simply cannot produce on its own, especially when it comes to children, the elderly, and people who are dealing with illness. A single scoop of powdered milk mixed up with water might not be a full meal on its own, but it is enough to keep the body from weakening when other sources of nutrition start disappearing. Powdered milk can hold up for decades, not because it is loaded with preservatives, but because it has been completely dehydrated, with nearly zero moisture present. Bacteria simply cannot survive, and the fats in the milk have been stabilized in dry form, which prevents the rapid oxidation you would see with fresh milk. When stored in a sealed bag or an airtight container, powdered milk does not spoil, does not turn rancid. It only gradually loses a little bit of its aroma over time, but it remains completely safe to consume. What actually causes powdered milk to go bad is not time, but air. The second the container is opened and moisture gets in, the powder will start to clump up and mold can easily develop. At that point, it cannot be saved, not even by cooking it or heating it up. Powdered milk is only truly going to last indefinitely when it is kept sealed, away from sunlight and separated from anything with a strong smell. When everything becomes difficult to buy, one container of powdered milk can become breakfast mixed into oats, nutrition for a child, energy for someone who is ill, and peace of mind for the entire family. Is your powdered milk still sitting in its original packaging, or have you transferred it into an airtight container for proper long-term storage? These 12 foods are not meant to be bought and then forgotten about. They are life support, helping you and your family stay calm and steady when everything happening outside starts to feel uncertain. No panic, no dependence on anyone else, just preparation done right. Starting now. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you do not miss out on any essential information on survival, nutrition, and long-term food storage. Stay ahead, prepare early, live proactively.